Welcome once again to our weekly hit on Climate Transform with me, Rupert Bowling, and with me as ever, our founder, Paul Craig. How are you, Paul?
Good, Rupert. How are you? Mate, very interesting week. And obviously we've got events we want to talk about, but I want to talk to start off a little bit about a guy that has become famous, infamous, depending on where you stand. A guy called Stuart Kirk, who's the currently suspended head of sustainability at HSBC. For those of you who haven't heard of Stuart, Stuart decided to do a rather controversial presentation at an FT sustainability forum, of which he rather, I'll say, crassly or or arrogantly, I think they're both fair statements, said that comments such as, if Miami is 6 feet underwater in 100 years' time, who cares? Paraphrasing. Now, I think he was a little bit taken out of context because what he should have said was, if Miami is able to build the same lock system as what Amsterdam has, they're going to be okay. He didn't say that, and he came across in a pretty dismissive, arrogant way, talking about the hyperbole around ESG. Now, no one is more critical of the hyperbole around ESG than I am, but there are ways and means to deliver a message. And Rupert, it's pretty rare that I should be, or hypocritical that I should be lecturing people about subtle deliveries of messages. But I also do think that it's really, really concerning that a head of sustainability at a major global institution is suspended for providing an alternative viewpoint. Now, knowing investment banks as I do, pretty rare that a public presentation isn't signed off by compliance to start with, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, we don't know the backstory. We don't know, what the tensions of any senior executive at any organisation is. But on a standalone basis, his delivery and what his message may have been a little crass. Do I think that the data he used to emphasise his points was also a little dodgy? Rupert, anyone who ever shows you a logarithmic chart to prove a point is struggling to make things match. So I think it's something we all should talk about. I put the video up on our Telegram banter group for people to have a look at, and it certainly caused a lot of controversy. Rightly so. He has supporters and detractors because I don't think it is black and white. But I would strongly recommend that everyone take a read of this. And I'm actually tempted to put it up on the thing on climatetransform.com just so people can watch it, debate it, go back and forth on the whole thing. Really intriguing. So I know you were, when we were talking about it, you were a little critical of him, and right, and fair enough.
I just think it's such a big topic that we need everyone pulling in the right direction. Of course, there's going to be naysayers, but I just think given his position, he's in a position of authority and responsibility, and the way he was viewing, I thought it was really unhelpful, the phrase referring to people as nut jobs. They're people that...
he went to town on Mark Carney. I mean, geez, it sounds like, did Mark Carney date one of his old girlfriends or something? It was brutal. I mean,
yeah, and whoever the previous speaker was as well.
The woman from McKinsey, I think he was referring to.
Right, yeah. I mean, we've got an example here in the UK of what happens when that rhetoric allows. We here in the UK just this week, we've had a windfall tax announced. You think, okay, take it potentially, if you've got a green agenda, that could be a good thing. But then when you unpick the detail, the windfall tax hits the oil and gas producers, but they can offset it if they invest in new production of oil and gas. Just the last thing we need right now. There's talking about keeping current supplies going, but to invest in new North Sea oil and gas, are you kidding? And you get a tax break for that. What kind of message does that set out for the world?
Well, I think that's.
And then on the other hand, renewables don't. Investment in renewables doesn't attract that tax break. I mean, what kind of messaging that send out?
Well, and mate, again, I'm bewildered by this. That there was there's still multiple countries have multiple tax breaks for the oil and gas industry still to this day, and to say, forgive my language, everyone, that makes no fucking sense. It's beyond me. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. So, I mean, at a minimum, if you got, again, but I'm no right wing from Ayn Rand free marketeer. But if you're going to eradicate tax breaks, let's eradicate tax breaks on everybody and let the chips fall where they may, because eventually renewables will be a superior source of energy than fossil fuels. You only have to look at the trajectory of cost curves to work that one out. So no, I think it's again, that's why we exist, right? we exist because there is an ongoing debate that needs to be had in all of this stuff. And no, I thought the suspension. I think suspending someone for an alternate view, even if you may not like that alternate view, I think is really, really concerning. And again, I'm no free speech advocate in the United States, because I think that's a whole other argument that gets far too much airplay here. But I think it is legitimate alternate views, of which he had some valid points, some dodgy points, but some valid points. I think that suspending someone from that role risks having blinkers on in terms of the true trajectory of the cause and effects of this transitional agenda, right? So, look, I'm a big believer. Look, the reason Donald Trump got elected in 2016 is because the United States, in particular, abandoned communities that were affected by globalization, right? And if you're not going to support communities in West Virginia, if you're not going to support communities in northern Queensland, in Sheffield, in Mongolia, as you transition away from the use of coal in particular, there are going to be political consequences like that. And I don't know if we want another 4 years of Donald Trump if we don't take these every nuance of the transition into account.
Fair. Well, I guess looking ahead to next week, we've actually got where capital is being deployed in a hopefully more positive way. And I think you're interviewing Pace Raleigh from maritime company who's looking to create the first net zero vessel, hydrogen fuel cells, I believe. Shipping, obviously, a very dirty industry.
Yeah, Pace and I met at our Climate Transformed venture capital dinner in New York, and he has built already a prototype of this. Well, prototype. It's a ferry, right? So it's a ferry in San Francisco that I'm actually not 100% sure if it's commercially working, if it's commercially operating, but certainly it's there. And so we're going to just talk about sort of greening the maritime industry. I think that shipping is an enormous polluter globally. I think it's 3 or 4% of global emissions in total. I think that it's an area which requires loads of capex to make this stuff work. Whether it's new ships, whether it's retrofitting old ships, whether it's hydrogen fuel cells, battery swapping on an enormous scale. There's a huge opportunity set for guys like Pace if they get them right, and it'll be interesting to see sort of where this can lead. I mean, a ferry is one thing, but can you do a Panamax style container ships, which are transatlantic or trans-Pacific? That remains to be seen. So that's certainly one of the things we're looking at. Mate, busily going on with our first big conference of the after the summer, which will be voluntary carbon markets, which we'll formally announce in about a week's time. But I think I'm formally announcing it now. So I'm going to ask everyone out there, and I'm going to put a survey. We're going to do a survey on LinkedIn about this. And Rupert, you don't know about this yet, so the look on your face is probably going to be priceless. Everyone, or some of you may be aware that Adam Newman of WeWork fame has just started a carbon offsetting business, which he is producing digitally based carbon offsets, and they are called, Rupert, Goddess offsets. Now, for any of you who saw the We Crashed show with Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway on HBO will know he's a bit of an odd character, a controversial character. And what I want to know, Rupert, is whether we should try and interview Adam Newman. And I've spoken to a bunch of friends in the last 24 hours, and there hasn't been a range. There's been 2 answers: hell yeah and hell no. Right? And I don't know if the right answer to that is is that we should interview him or not. It just does remain to be seen.
Well, let the viewers decide.
What do you think?
I think it'd be great to get a big name like that on. You talk about a narrowing of views. It'd be interesting to rigorously test that, and certainly someone like Alessandro, who knows the market inside out, would be a perfect person to really test whether this is nonsense or whether it has credibility. So I say get him on. But
yeah, why not? So everyone, we're going to do it. We'll do a couple of surveys. Anyone's got some thoughts, please send them through. We'd love to hear them. Rupert, it's going to be a sort of a quietish week next week, because you're most of the UK is out for most of the week. Pretty safe to say.
Yeah, we're celebrating the Queen's 70 years on the throne.
Bless her. Everyone, have a wonderful week, and we'll chat to you all soon.